Hello again. In 1804, at a time when the islands of the Caribbean were enormously profitable because of the demand in Europe for sugar, Haiti threw off the French yoke and achieved independence. Not to put too fine a point on it, it has been downhill pretty much all the way since then, over the last 200 years or so. The people of Haiti seem unable to govern themselves in a reasonable fashion and have stumbled from tyrant to tyrant, ending now in a ferocious civil war, which will probably end with the state falling apart entirely. The war there has, according to the United Nations, cost 5,000 lives in the last year, and it's now hotting up dramatically. In the last few days, some viewers might have seen mention of Haiti in the news because things are becoming catastrophically bad. But this has been going on for years without anybody minding or wishing even to notice what is happening. The history of Haiti began with the genocide of all the white people and those of mixed heritage living there. This lasted for 2 years between 1804 and 1806. A lot of the people that left there ended up in New Orleans, which is why New Orleans in America has got such a French atmosphere. Since that time, there have been no fewer than 32 coups in the country and an endless series of massacres, civil wars, and so on. I dare say some viewers will remember Papa Doc and the Tonton Macoute in the 1960 and the dreadful things that happened then. Compared with today, that was like paradise for ordinary people living there. So far this year, according to the United Nations, well over 1,000 people have been killed in the fighting as armed groups battle for control of the capital. The main airport has been the site of some fierce gun battles, and there are plans for a peacekeeping force from Kenya to fly in and take control of the deteriorating situation. Whether that will happen is anybody's guess. All the reports that one reads refer to gangs controlling 80% of the capital, but of course gangs is one of those loaded words that people use when they disapprove of some body of armed men. Some viewers will be aware that during the Israeli War of Independence, the British Army of Occupation used to refer to Lachi as the Stern Gang. It's the same thing here when people talk of gangs in Haiti. It's used in a pejorative sense. It is a very curious thing that countries in the Caribbean seem to have enormously high rates of murder at the best of times, even when they're not gripped by a civil war. It's also curious to note that these high rates of murder only began after independence, after white rule ended. They stopped being colonies. That is to say, when the countries were no longer administered by European countries, principally Britain. In Britain, about one person per 100,000 a year is murdered, but the rates in Caribbean countries are often 30, 40 or 50 times as high as that. Jamaica's murder rate is 53 times as high as Britain's. Trinidad's is 40 times higher. The same with St Vincent, but I'm sure you get the idea. Haiti is curious because, of course, a lot of the ills which befall countries in Africa and the Caribbean are blamed upon the legacy of colonialism. But in this case, colonialism ended over a decade before the Battle of Waterloo. There does seem to be something about the Caribbean which causes people to be more prone to killing each other than they are in this country. Why that should be, I wouldn't venture to say, but there does appear to be a pattern. The reason that nobody has wished to report what is happening in the Caribbean until now, when things have reached the point of open warfare, is that it's embarrassing for liberals to see what is happening and has been happening in the last couple of 100 years in a black nation completely free of white colonialism. It was never supposed to end up this way. It's worth noting that until independence in 1962, the murder rate in Jamaica was one of the lowest in the world. and by 2022 it had the highest murder rate in the world. It does rather seem that in both Haiti and Jamaica, the end of white rule resulted in soaring violence and an awful lot of people being killed. As usual, in the description to this video, I give a few news items about what I've been discussing.